The four realities of retirement spending that you need to know now. It's written by Robert Powell. I'm actually a fan of Robert's writing, been for a long time. I think I'm connected to him on LinkedIn. I don't get on LinkedIn all that much anymore, but anyway, so let's read this. I haven't read it yet, and like I said, I'm a fan of Robert's writing. How come sometimes when I click this, it goes up, and sometimes it doesn't? There we go. Okay, cool. There we go. All right, so this is Dateline November 6, 2019. So a few months old, but nothing too extraordinary. Any sound financial plan requires that you figure out your retirement expenses in advance, advisors say. Do they really say that? How many advisors really say that? But since retirement can now last 30 years, what's the best way to plan for those decade-long costs? David Blanchett, my man, DB, David Blanchett, head of retirement research for Morningstar, says, I think exploring retirement spending at a deeper level that's beyond just assuming annual expenses increase annually with inflation is an important part of a financial plan. I could not. So let me revisit what he said. I think exploring retirement spending that is beyond just assuming expenses rise annually with inflation. Yep. New research from EBRI, I've talked about EBRI many times, Employee Benefits Research Institute offers some insight into doing that. Here are 4 insights you should consider when getting your finances in order. All right, let's take a look. Your spending will fall in retirement. Expect your spending to go down as you move from early retirement, often referred to the go-go years, to middle retirement, the slow-go years, to late retirement, the no-go years, according to the EBRI report. How do retirees' spending patterns change over time? Oh boy, Pablo's eating something. He's chewing on something when my wife gets back. She's in Texas right now. She will have my head on a platter. Consider the EBRI average household expenditures total of $55,000 for people aged 50 to 64 versus $50,000 for those 65 to 74 and $39,000 for those 75 and older. Yeah, that's there you go. Now, I mean, yeah, I don't like the average so much, but I'd rather see the median. But inherently, I completely agree with that for sure. The one drawback, but this just using that as a state. The one drawback with those numbers, all right, are people 50 to 64. There's the same, what is it called, longitudinal study where you're following these guys from 50 to 64, watching what they spend from 65 to 74, and watching what those same group of people spend at 75. Or is the 75 group a different group as the people 50 to 64? If they're different groups of people, I don't know if you can make the comparison. You got to kind of watch as they progress through their retirement, if that makes sense. 2 takeaways. 1, you might save more than you need if you base your retirement savings plan on the rule of thumb that you'd have to replace 75 to 80% of your pre-retirement income. Replacing a standard of living, this guy, Perspective Partners, a guy named Keith Whitcomb says, replacing a standard of living and adjusting that amount by inflation for each passing year will likely overstate your retirement funding needs. Yeah, I agree. And 2, a personalized retirement income plan is best. The 80% replacement ratio rule of thumb is not universal. It's not even universal. It's literally taken. There's just the evidence of that is minimal at best. You should not say 80% is your default. You just got to think this through a little bit more, man. Think this through a little bit more. What's your default replacement ratio? And should be the replacement ratio of your last year of earnings or the replacement ratio of today. Just so much is going on. It's like, I don't want to say it's idiotic. But I mean, again, for the 20 millionth time, I have 4 kids. I live in a big fat house. I got one at Georgia Tech, one getting ready to go. It was what's it called? A rising junior in high school. 2 in middle school. 2 in middle school. All right. When we're empty nesters, we're not going to sit in this big fat house. We're just not. We're not going to put kids through school. We're not going to have a big fat mortgage payment, which by far and away our biggest expense. You see how that goes? I mean, we're not going to have to care for health care for a family of 6. Car insurance for a family of 6. Probably have to upgrade my Pablo eating methods, but other than that, percent spent on healthcare rises. Well, I agree with that 100%. I expect to spend a greater percent of your income on healthcare as you move from early to late retirement. And consider in 2017, healthcare as a percentage of expenses in retirement rose from 7.8% to 10.6%, so roughly a 30% increase in expenditures. But so low to begin with. It's only 7.8% for people 50 to 64 to 10.6 for people 75 and older. So it's a 30% increase, but it's starting from a low number. So it's just everyone says, "Oh my goodness, healthcare rises like more than 3 times the rate of inflation." Yeah, but you're starting way down here. Let's see. How to plan for expenses. First, learn what Medicare covers, what it doesn't. Medicare generally covers only about 2/3 of costs of health care services for beneficiaries 65 and above. Never mind the stupid thing. You need 183 to 360,000, not including long-term care. I hate that number. I hate it. I despise I despise the insinuation that we're all going broke because we don't have $300,000 for health care. They don't do that with any other entity that you'll need in retirement. They don't do it for food. They don't do it for housing. They don't do it for clothing. They don't do it for entertainment. They just do it for healthcare because healthcare is what scares everybody to death. So they go to their financial planner and say, "Help me." And then they spend 1% a year on assets under management, or they buy heavy commission products, or they'll fund research at Boston College or University of Michigan or whatever to say, "Look, everyone's doomed. I tell you, give us money, federal government, and we'll show you how to resolve the doomsday." And how they do resolve the doomsday? By creating more doomsday. Give us more money. It's great how that works. Everyone's sucking at the government teat. It's nuts. All right. Don't, however, despair that you won't be able to pay for health care and retirement. It's nuts. You're going to be look, some people are going to be in a world of hurt. Name any place that some people are not in a world of hurt. Human beings, some people are always in a world of hurt, and some people are doing great. The vast majority of us are going to be just fine. Housing is largest spending category. I've talked about that a million times a Sunday. Housing represents 45.9% of expenses and 44.9% of expenses and 45.6% of expenses, regardless of what age bracket you're in. That seems a little bit higher than the CES, Consumer Expenditure Survey, through the BLS, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, states. But that seems pretty high relative to what BLS says, which is about 35 to 33%. But either way, it's almost a half of your total expenditures. It depends if they're used like what they're throwing under housing categories or not. But either way, for you to live someplace, the housing is by far and away your biggest expense. Nothing comes close. Consider downsizing. 100% right. Doing so could free up some of the equity in your home. That's what we're going to do, man, without question. EBRI also notes that households on average spend less on food as people grew older. That's interesting. You'd think they spend more eating out. On the average dollar amount spent on work-related expenses, such as transportation and clothing, that both decline by age. Pablo's got the zoomies over here. What's more, EBRI notes that the average amount spent on entertainment declined by age too, and older households allocated a larger share of their budgets to gifts and contributions. One strategy considered before retirement is to practice retirement. 100% right. I could not agree. Pre-retirees should consider living as though they are retired for 1 to 2 years before retirement. I think that's right on. I think that's 100% right, and I certainly never forget to don't overlook getting your estate planning done as well. They don't talk about it here, but I think it's a good article. I'll put a link in the show notes. If you have comments on that, if you're already retired and you have some ideas, has spending on housing dwarfed your spending on healthcare? I'd love to hear it. So put that in the notes if you would. Has spending on housing dwarfed your spending on healthcare? Has spending on housing dwarfed your spending on healthcare, like what EBRI says? If you are retired, let's see what we got. All right, thanks now.